You are 19 years old when the war arrives through a loudspeaker above the locomotive yard in Gorky. It is June 22nd, 1941. One moment you are replacing a cracked steam valve beside your father. The next, Germany has invaded the Soviet Union, and every whistle in the yard begins calling men to work. You think the railway will protect you because armies cannot move without trains. 15 months later, a military clerk places your draft order on the same workbench. Now the question is how much of you will return when it is finished. Until that Sunday, your future is small enough to fit inside one railway district. Your father, Alexei, repairs locomotives and mistrusts any machine that sounds too quiet. Your mother, Elena, keeps accounts for a food cooperative and can stretch one potato farther than physics should allow. Your younger sister, Anya, is 13 and steals the warm side of every blanket. Katya Morozova lives in the next building and plans to become a school teacher. Then Molotov's announcement comes through the radio. Workers stop beneath the loudspeaker with tools still in their hands. Some demand rifles while others calculate the distance to the western border. Your father says nothing until the speech ends. Then he turns back toward the silent locomotive. "The country will need this moving before it needs our opinions," he says. For the next year, the railway yard becomes a second front made of sparks and exhaustion. Trains arrive carrying factory machinery evacuated from the west. Other trains bring families who left homes with one suitcase and no idea where their fathers are. Military trains head west loaded with tanks, shells, horses, bread, and boys pretending not to be afraid. Hospital trains return more quietly. You repair irreplaceable parts while Katya works at a hospital and Anya collects scrap. Then, cities disappear from the map until German troops approach Moscow. Your draft order arrives in August 1942. The German advance has reached the Volga, and the Red Army needs replacements faster than factories can produce boots. Your supervisor reads the paper twice. He has argued that trained railway workers are too valuable to lose, but the stamp ends the argument. You have 5 days. Your mother packs bread, socks, and enough advice to stop an armored division. Katya gives you a pencil and asks for letters that contain at least one true sentence. On the morning you leave, your father places an aluminum spoon in your hand. Anya has scratched your street name into the handle with a nail. The letters are crooked, and one is facing backward. She says this way the spoon can find home even if you cannot. The spoon goes inside your tunic. It will cross Europe and enter Berlin before you understand why you kept it. The train carries you south and east to a training camp near Saratov. You join a line receiving uniforms, boots, rifles, and instructions. The tunic is too wide. The boots are too small. The rifle is older than you, and training is compressed by the emergency. You learn to shoot, crawl, throw grenades, and dig positions. That is where you meet Mikhail Petrov, known immediately as Misha. Before the war, he operated a film projector in Rostov-on-Don. He can imitate every actor he has ever seen, and none of them accurately. No letters have arrived from his family since the Germans returned to Rostov. Misha says this means they are too busy to write. Sergeant Sergei Antonov commands your training squad. He is 34 and has been retreating since the first week of the invasion. Antonov checks feet, ammunition, water, and whether men can find their weapons in darkness. He says heroes receive newspapers, but dry socks receive survivors. One afternoon, a political officer reads the newly issued Order Number 227. Unauthorized retreat is forbidden. Commanders who abandon positions can face punishment. The slogan is simple: not one step back. Misha suggests reading the order to the advancing Germans. Antonov hears him and assigns Misha an extra trench. Then he tells you the slogan is not a plan. Hold when holding matters and move when moving keeps the man beside you alive. The difference will rarely arrive in writing. In September, your unit is sent toward Stalingrad. The closer the train gets, the less the landscape resembles a country, and the more it resembles an evacuation. Roads carry civilians east and soldiers west. Smoke sits on the horizon before you see the city. German aircraft circle above the Volga, while wounded men wait for returning boats. You are ordered onto one of those boats after sunset. The Volga is wider than any river you have seen. Men sit beside ammunition crates while artillery flashes along the banks. Misha grips the side and announces that his next occupation will be nowhere near boats, rivers, or governments. Halfway across, aircraft appear above the moonlit water. The boat turns hard as explosions rise behind it. One ammunition crate breaks loose and slides across the deck. You and Antonov catch it before it crushes a soldier against the rail. The company waiting in the ruins has almost no grenades left. You reach the western bank before dawn. Stalingrad has streets on the map, but almost none on the ground. Walls stand without rooms, and rail lines end beneath collapsed buildings. The factories beside the river continue producing and repairing weapons while fighting closes around them. Your company enters the industrial district through a drainage trench. The first position is a workers' apartment block with Germans occupying part of the building. They hold the upper floor. Your squad holds the cellar and half the staircase. Misha says the housing committee will never approve this arrangement. You laugh too loudly, and Antonov orders silence. On your third day, the Germans attack behind smoke. You fire down a corridor until dust hides everything. Antonov pulls you through a broken kitchen wall before the ceiling collapses. Misha drags the ammunition box after you. The three of you emerge inside another apartment and defend its view of the courtyard for 6 hours. By evening, half the squad is wounded, dead, or stranded behind new rubble. The official report calls the building held. The report does not describe how little of the building remains. Food arrives at night in metal containers carried from the river. You eat with Anya's spoon while sitting beneath a staircase. Misha says the crooked street name looks more like a warning. You write home on a scrap of paper. Stalingrad is busy, you tell your mother. The work is difficult, and you still have the spoon. Those are the true sentences Katya requested. Everything important stays unwritten before the military censor sees it. October turns the ruins cold. German attacks push toward the river in repeated waves. Soviet reinforcements cross at night, and the wounded return east whenever boats can move. The lower Volga begins filling with drifting ice. Your world shrinks to several ruined buildings, one trench, and the path to the river. Then Antonov is ordered to recover a machine gun from a position cut off across the street. 4 men run with him, and you are the 5th. The street is only 20 meters wide. Misha throws smoke while you crawl behind a broken tram. The gun crew has been hit, but the weapon still works. Antonov lifts the tripod while you pull the gun. Mortar fire throws bricks across the tram during the return. When the dust clears, Antonov is lying beside the track and cannot stand. You reach for him. He pushes the ammunition belt toward you and says to take what the position needs. You tell him 2 men can carry both. He looks toward the German windows. Choose before they choose for you. You carry Antonov first. Misha takes the gun, and the other 2 men divide the ammunition. All 5 reach the doorway, but Antonov dies before the medic opens his bag. The machine gun fires from the 2nd floor that evening. For years, you will wonder whether your choice mattered to Antonov for 3 extra minutes. On November 19th, the horizon behind the German flanks begins flashing before sunrise. The Soviet counteroffensive has started. You do not see the armies closing around Stalingrad. Days later, runners confirm that the German 6th Army is encircled. Men cheer inside the same ruins where they were preparing to die. The battle continues through winter after the circle closes. In January, German prisoners begin appearing in long columns. They look younger than the enemy in your imagination. One prisoner stares at Anya's spoon while you eat. You expect hatred to feel clean. You move the bowl out of his sight. The German forces in Stalingrad finally surrender in early February 1943. The surviving soldiers of your army receive speeches, decorations, and several hours in buildings with roofs. You are 21. Antonov appears whenever someone says victory came from refusing to move. In the spring, the 62nd Army becomes the 8th Guards Army for its defense of Stalingrad. The new title brings pride and badges, but it does not make the next kilometer easier. Your army moves west through the Donbass and Ukraine. Now the Germans retreat, destroying bridges and railways behind them. In one town, a woman shows your squad a row of locked homes whose Jewish families were taken away. Nobody in the unit can repair what the empty street means. You give her bread because action is easier than understanding. Misha searches every liberated town for news from Rostov. Lists of evacuees, prisoners, missing people, and the dead cover station walls. His family appears under none of them. A letter from Anya reaches you in July 1943. German aircraft have bombed industrial districts in Gorky. Your mother and Katya are alive. Your father died during a night shift when a workshop collapsed. You read the letter beside a damaged railway line in Ukraine. The rails have been twisted by explosives. The distance home suddenly feels larger than the distance to Germany. Misha sits beside you without speaking. Later, he gives you his sugar ration and pretends it was a bookkeeping error. The skill your father taught you now repairs switches carrying artillery west. By the summer of 1944, your army reaches the Vistula in Poland. The river is another wide strip of water between you and the west. Assault boats move after dark near Magnesu. Men hold rifles above their heads as engineers fight the current. Your boat strikes debris and turns sideways. A young replacement named Yuri loses his grip and falls into the river. You catch his equipment strap while Misha pulls both of you against the boat. Saving him means cutting away the ammunition tied to his body. You slice the cord, the ammunition sinks. Yuri lives. The bridgehead receives 1 box fewer, and nobody congratulates you. By morning, the company holds a strip of wet ground west of the river. German counterattacks begin before trenches are deep enough. The bridgehead expands by meters while engineers build crossings behind you. Food, shells, tanks, and wounded men compete for the same crossings. You spend months there as summer becomes rain, and rain becomes frost. Misha finally receives a postcard forwarded through 3 military offices. His younger brother escaped Rostov and joined another Red Army unit. His parents are still missing. Misha reads the postcard until the paper softens along the folds. He does not call it good news, he calls it news. In January 1945, the guns behind the bridgehead open together. The Vistula Oder offensive begins. The first days move faster than anything since the German invasion. Your unit passes abandoned positions, wrecked vehicles, columns of prisoners, and towns whose signs change language. Polish civilians watch from doorways. Some welcome liberation, while others watch Soviet uniforms with fears of their own. You learn that liberation can be real without being simple. Near Poznan, German defenses harden around roads and stone buildings. Your Stalingrad experience becomes useful again. You enter houses through courtyards, cellars, and holes broken between walls. Misha says Europe builds excellent cities for people who intend to destroy them. Everyone is too tired to laugh. By February, you reach the Oder and can point toward Berlin without using a map. Victory feels close enough to imagine. That makes men careless. Trophy watches appear on wrists, and some soldiers speak about revenge like another ration. You take a warm blanket from an abandoned house because your own is wet. Upstairs, you find a child's height marked in pencil along a door frame. You leave the blanket folded on the stairs. The act changes nothing beyond what you are willing to become. On April 16th, Soviet artillery opens the final offensive toward Berlin. The sky above the Oder turns white as searchlights reflect from smoke. The ground shakes beneath weapons assembled on a scale no soldier can understand from one trench. Then the infantry moves toward the Seelow Heights. German positions survive more of the bombardment than expected. Mud slows men below the slopes as machine guns fire from higher ground. The grand offensive becomes soldiers searching for the next ditch. Yuri freezes behind a disabled tank. You pull him down before he stands into the fire. Misha shouts that Antonov would charge him rent for such a bad position. You move when artillery covers the slope, but a shell lands near Misha. You find him conscious but unable to stand. His left boot lies at the wrong angle beneath him. He asks whether the projector is still running, and you say the audience is impatient. Medics carry him toward the rear while the attack continues west. You move without his voice beside you. Berlin begins as smoke above the horizon. Then it becomes barricades, canals, rail yards, and apartment blocks. The city reminds the veterans of Stalingrad, but every direction has reversed. Now German soldiers wait inside the buildings. Now Soviet guns fire from outside. Your squad fights through a tram depot where damaged cars stand in perfect rows. Near the Landwehr Canal, your unit enters a basement filled with civilians. An elderly man raises his hands while a woman grips a kitchen pot. Yuri asks what to do with them. You tell him to mark the entrance and move on. You are simply tired of making enemies faster than the war can remove them. On May 2nd, organized resistance inside Berlin collapses. Red flags hang from ruined buildings. Soldiers fire into the air and write their names on walls. You sit on the steps of a railway station and take out Anya's spoon. The scratched street name is almost smooth. You use it to eat soup from a German kitchen pot. The object that crossed Europe performs the least heroic task imaginable. News of Germany's surrender brings another celebration days later. For the Soviet Union, victory is marked on May 9th. You think the word victory will open a door and release everyone through it. It does not. The dead remain dead. The missing remain uncertain. You stay in Germany for months. Men trade rumors about demobilization like news of an offensive. Misha sends a hospital letter in September. He has lost part of his left leg. He says this should improve his chances of receiving a seat at the cinema. His parents were killed during the occupation of Rostov. His brother survived the war. Your own demobilization order arrives near the end of 1945. You carry medals, a spare shirt, Katya's old pencil, and Anya's spoon. The train east is crowded with men discovering that home has become another uncertain destination. You reach Gorky in January 1946. Snow covers the platform. Your mother is smaller than the woman in your memory. Anya is 18 and no longer steals blankets. Katya stands behind them wearing a hospital coat. For several seconds, everyone compares the person present with the person expected. Then Anya sees the spoon in your hand. She begins laughing and crying at the same time. "The spoon found the street," she says. You want to answer, but the station whistle sounds and your body drops before your mind understands why. Katya kneels and tells the passengers to give you room. The war has ended, but your nerves have not received the announcement. Home contains your father's boots beneath the bed and his mug beside the stove. You return to the same bed where the draft order arrived. Your hands remember the tools. Steam escaping from a valve sounds like incoming fire. At night, you wake searching for a rifle that is no longer beside you. Katya does not ask you to forget. At first, you give her official answers. Stalingrad was difficult, Berlin was destroyed, and you won. Months later, you tell her about Antonov beside the tram and Misha below the Seelow Heights. You tell her why you could not take the blanket from the German house. The story becomes shareable, if not lighter. Misha returns to Rostov with a wooden crutch and eventually finds work in another projection room. When you visit in 1948, the film jams halfway through a comedy. Misha opens the booth door and blames German sabotage. You laugh harder than anyone else. You marry Katya that autumn. Anya becomes an engineer. The country builds factories, railways, apartments, and monuments. Public memory becomes cleaner than private memory. Posters show confident soldiers who are never cold, confused, or afraid. You attend Victory Day ceremonies and stand when Antonov's name is read. You also remember people whose names were never collected correctly. When your son asks whether you were a hero, you say you were a railway mechanic wearing a rifle. You tell him that survival rarely arrives in a heroic shape. Sometimes it is a friend giving away his sugar ration. Sometimes it is cutting loose ammunition to save a drowning replacement. Decades pass, and the street name on the spoon becomes almost impossible to read. You keep it in the top drawer of your workbench. After retirement, you still visit the railway yard when a restored locomotive is brought out for ceremonies. Your granddaughter comes with you one spring afternoon. She finds the spoon inside your coat and asks why anyone would engrave an address on cutlery. You tell her Anya believed every object should know where it belonged. The locomotive whistle echoes across the yard. For an instant, you see troop trains moving west and hospital trains returning east. Then, the platform fills with students, workers, suitcases, flowers, and impatient families. You spent years believing victory was the moment your army reached Berlin. Later, you believed it was the day the train returned you to Gorky. Now you understand victory was never one day. It was every ordinary morning the war failed to take afterward. Your granddaughter hands back the spoon because lunch is waiting at home. The spoon is finally only a spoon. The train is finally only a train. You leave before the soup gets cold.